So the first thing I'd like to say is good evening and warm welcome to everyone. And really on behalf of the Carter School Advisory Board and our Dean, Alp Ozerdim, that I think you saw a few minutes ago, we really thank you for taking the time to join us for the celebration of the Ambassador John W. McDonald Award. So as you know, our honored guest is Mr. Al Jubitz, who is going to be speaking to us from Portland, Oregon. And we are delighted that the McDonald's daughter, Laura Schneider, is also in that area. And so she will actually be able to hand him the award for us. So with this virtual ceremony, we do have a personal touch. And thank you very much to Crystal for making that arrangement. So you can see Crystal sitting there. So the plans for the hour are really to have an orientation. The dean will speak to us about the Carter School and the importance of this event. We'll have a short video of Al Jubitz, and then we'll have some remarks from Al after the award. And following that, you'll have a chance to ask Al questions. So please use the chat function for any questions, and George will be monitoring that for us. So the first photo then was that you just saw was an image that we have from Ambassador McDonald. So I'd like to say a few words about him. This was an image of Ambassador McDonald, and he's with the UN Secretary General Javier Perez de Cuellar. And this is an event where he received the UN Peace Messenger Award in 1990. We love this photo because those of us who worked with the ambassador, we worked with him on our advisory board, just recognize that smile and the gentleness that you can see in the photo. So as we celebrate the International Day of Peace on September 21st, it's truly significant to honor the legacy of the late Ambassador McDonald. He was a lawyer, a global strategist, and he authored the UN resolution that established the International Day of Peace. So the ambassador works strategically with diplomats from Costa Rica who actually wanted to have a year of peace or a decade of peace. And he was determined to make sure there was a resolution for dedicated to peace. The resolution that he authored was presented to the UN General Assembly by the President of Costa Rica, Rodrigo Carazo, and it was approved unanimously in 1982. I'd also like to add that the ambassador had many achievements. A few that I would like to recognize are, he authored the resolutions for the United Nations Environment Program, and he authored the resolutions for two decades that were dedicated to clean water and sanitation. And of course, many of you are familiar with the concept of multi-track diplomacy, which is, what's remarkable about that is that a diplomat, someone who actually was highly respected for that position, was trying to expand the whole concept of diplomacy to consider citizen diplomacy and the importance of a much more inclusive approach to peace culture, in effect. So what I'd like to say about Al is that, and this was my first interview with Al. When I first met Al, I had started doing research on multi-track diplomacy because, as anyone who knows Crystal, when you meet Crystal, suddenly you have assignments. And so I was doing all of this research on multi-track diplomacy, and I was looking for a simple definition for multi-track diplomacy. The State Department really doesn't have a simple definition. And Al is the one who I said to him, Al, multi-track diplomacy, what does diplomacy mean to you? And Al said to me, oh, that's simple. Multi-track diplomacy for me is peace building. And so I'd like that to be kind of a theme for us as we move forward, because we're talking about citizen diplomacy, peace building. And one of the challenges that I think students have is understanding all of the different career paths that you can have and still be a peace builder. So, you know, as graduate students look for positions, it really is important for them to recognize the many backgrounds here. Our own dean is an engineer. Ambassador McDonald was a lawyer, and we're going to introduce our advisory board and just give you a sense of the variety of backgrounds we have on our own advisory board. So The Dean's Administrative Assistant, Mercedes Alsop, who has also been very helpful for this program. She is a Marine. I'm not allowed to say a former Marine. And she's going to help us introduce the advisory board and manage time, because we are going to do this very efficiently for you. So Mercedes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special occasion as we honor Mr. Jubitz tonight. I'm just going to take a moment just to introduce our advisory board members. And I am going to start with Dr. Alma Abdul Hadi Jadala. She is the adjunct faculty and graduate of our school. She is a conflict mitigation expert. She leads Common Denominator Inc. Consulting globally on gender, the inclusion of marginalized communities, and the nexus between development and security. She also served on the UN panel of experts on Yemen and represented the Quakers in the ME. So I'm just gonna highlight her here on screen just for one quick second so you can see who she is. All right. Next, it's Daryl Byler, who has 30 years of diverse peacebuilding experience. Roles that he's held have included legal aid attorney, mediator, pastor, public policy advocate, international development worker, and executive director at the Center for Justice and Peace Building. He currently serves as development director for the DC Bar Foundation. I don't believe that he is in just yet, but we'll move on to the next person. I got you, Alma. Yeah. Okay, next we have
Daryl is there.
Daryl is there?
Yes.
He is?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
If he speaks, you'll find him, right?
Yes. Daryl, can you say hello?
Hello.
There you are. Okay,
Yes.
great. Nice to see you. Wonderful, welcome. Our next advisory board member is Carlos R Calderon. I'm gonna highlight him so you can see.
That's good.
Hi, Carlos. Carlos is the CEO of OAS FCU with members in over 80 countries and total assets of over 250 million. With a multicultural and bilingual background, he has a commitment to diversity, inclusion, equity, and innovation in financial services. He also has an MBA from Marymount University and an executive master's in leadership at Georgetown University. All right, say hello, Carlos.
Good evening.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Rebecca Cataldi. Rebecca is a trainer and practitioner in conflict resolution and countering violent extremism with the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy, specializing in religion and peace building in Yemen and Pakistan. She is also a Carter School alumna. Yay! She also works to reduce political tensions in American communities through various initiatives. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Next we have is Mr. George Dwyer. George is an Emmy award-winning television reporter and producer with a PhD in liberal studies from Georgetown University. His career in broadcast news has included work with ABC News, The Voice of America, and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. He is a research scholar with the Carter School, and he champions pickleball for peace. Pickleball, which I'm looking forward to trying.
That's this.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody.
Next, we have Dr. Alan Gropin, who is not with us tonight, but Dr. Gropin served 27 years in the military with 2 combat tours in Vietnam. While flying in Vietnam, the words on war he previously taught were plainly visible as illustrations. He has been a board member for 20 years. The principles taught at the Carter School are essential to create accolades promoting peace and conflict resolution. And our next highlight is Mary Jo Larson. Mary Jo is a practitioner, scholar with a PhD from the Carter School. Her research investigates precautionary climate action, which is strongly influenced by international service with the Peace Corps and Gates Foundation. Dr. Larson advances leadership and governance systems, contributing to cultures of peace and ecological stewardship and sustainability. Say hello,
Hello,
to
everyone.
Mary. Hello, everybody. Wonderful. The next person we're going to highlight is Christelle Mcdonald. Christelle Mcdonald, who is a former European civil servant, wife and partner in diplomacy and peace building of the late Ambassador John W. McDonnell, spent 17 years in the US Foreign Service, followed by 30 years in the NGO world, facilitating international connections to advance global peace through multi-track diplomacy. Hi, Christelle.
Thank you for being here.
And next we have, and I practiced this name, so please forgive me, is Batelde Munoz Pogosian, who is a Venezuelan American political scientist with 20 years experience at the Organization of American States. She is an author and columnist on democracy, equity, and social inclusion issues. And she holds a PhD from Florida International University. She is also the founder of the network of female political scientists, Not Without Women. I want to say hello to Batilda.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good to see you.
Wonderful. And the next person we're going to highlight is Prabha Sanka Narayan. I think I got it close enough, so forgive me if I messed that up. Wonderful. She is a lifelong child advocate and passionate about peace building. She has dedicated the last 10 years of her life to supporting local efforts around the world, and has done this primarily through her leadership at Mediators Beyond Borders International. She was also just selected for the 2020 International Advocate for Peace Award. Let's congratulate her on her award. Wonderful. And finally tonight, we are going to highlight Miss Casey Suarez. Casey is an international consultant in management, organization development, and development sociology, and she holds a PhD from Cornell University. She has worked with the Organization of American States. Casey focuses on people's participation in national, regional, and local social organizations, including vulnerable rural and urban communities. Say hello to Casey.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so we welcome all of our advisory board members.
Mercedes, we have Mr. Hadi Amer who joined us. He had a previous appointment and it was canceled. If you could just give him 1
Hi.
second.
That's all good. Thank you.
Can we see? Let's see.
Welcome, Hadi. Nice to see you.
Welcome, Hadi.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So at this time, I'm going to turn it into the hands of Dean Ozodom, who's going to offer some remarks.
Thank you very much, Mercedes.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you, Mercedes, and good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to be with so many friends here. It's wonderful to see so many of you with us tonight. Thank you for joining us for this special occasion as we honor Mr. Jubitz with the Ambassador John W. McDonald Award. I want to start with my thanks and appreciation to Mary Jo, George Dwyer, and Mercedes also for putting together such a wonderful event. And as the night progresses, you will understand what I mean. And to the Carter Advisory Board, thank you for all that you've done for the Carter School and amazing things that we'll continue to do together on this new journey. And I'd like to thank Christelle Mcdonald for your cautious, continuous support, and wonderful advice to me over the last 14 months since I became the Dean of the Carter School. Christelle, you've been so wonderful to me. Thank you. And also for allowing us to honor your husband's legacy, work, and commitment to peace building. Now, let me just say a few words about the Carter School. And in fact, it's a new name, and but the school is much older. We are the oldest peace and conflict studies school here in the US. It was established as a center in the early 1980s, and then it became a institute and a school. And back in February, we had the honor of renaming our school after two amazing peacemakers, Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. So we are now Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Isn't that fantastic? Yes. We are so proud of this renaming. We are a unique school, and this is especially for the benefit of our guests who don't know much about the school and our new advisory board members. It's unique because we have undergraduate, graduate, and PhD program in conflict analysis and resolution. So this is not that common in peace studies, especially in this country. And one of the, I mean, we have obviously lots of key objectives for our future, but one of which is really we want to engage with different stakeholders. We want to be relevant to all different communities in our immediate environments here in the United States and beyond. Because for us doing peace studies, I think the question of so what is really important. It's not only a study and to teach and research, but then how to engage with communities affected by different types of conflict. I think that's what makes us so unique, and I think this is why our work is so exciting. So with that, and I think it's also really important that, as you know, around the world today, many nations are observing the International Day of Peace, established in 1981 by the United Nations General Assembly. In fact, as mentioned by Mary Jo, Ambassador John W. McDonald, who served on our advisory board, was instrumental in the UN resolution for the International Day of Peace. So we are very proud of that. And in fact, the day is really significant because for one day, nations around the world are asked to commit to peace in spite of their differences by observing 24 hours of nonviolence and ceasefire. I think all of us would agree that such a day is needed every day. Well, this year, the Carter School want to take the International Day of Peace a step further. We want to take an active part in this important initiative by hosting our first ever Carter School Peace Week. Mm-hmm. We hope that a week of activities presented by our faculty, staff, and special guests would inspire the greater community to take an active role in shaping peace around the world, long after today. I hope that you'll be able to participate in some of our activities this week as we extend the commemoration of the day through education and public awareness on issues related to conflict prevention and peace building. Right, now, in just a few moments, we'll be speaking with this year's McDonald Award honoree, Mr. Jubitz. But first, we want to share a short video clip in which it describes his view on how to develop capacities for peace building.
Thank you.
Have to be willing to risk embarrassment or difficult conversations. It's always rewarding because usually when you risk, other people will risk and you get to know each other better and the whole situation improves. So we have an opportunity every day to do what I like to do, is smile at people. Just whether in the store, wherever you are, just smile at someone. That's a peace sign. The values of Rotary are so strong, and it's everywhere on the planet. I think that maybe we could achieve world peace if we activated Rotarians and educated them and reminded them in the DNA of Rotary is peace for the last 116 years. So so it just seemed to come together. And that's what led me to found with Dennis, the Rotarian Action Group for Peace. And so far, so good. Peace of the 21st century, the whole peace movement of the 21st century is radically different than in the early 70s when I first became aware of what I call the peace movement. Today, it's very scientifically based. And we know, we've done research and we know practices that work to resolve conflicts long before they become violent. So the enemy is violence. And even the brain scientists and the medical people are telling us that violence is a disease. We have to speak truth to power. We have to provide alternatives. The global peace system has been created over the last 200 years. We need to call out violence for what it is, and we need to stop investing in weapons.
Thank you. George, thank you for that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So no, I wanted to just take a moment to connect the video, which helps us to honor Al Jubitz's philosophy and commitment, to connect that to the context of Ambassador McDonald's legacy. So you notice as we opened the video, there was really a personal touch to this. As Al talked about, you know, the courage that it takes to really just sit down and talk to people, talk with people. I love the emphasis on smile. And the recognition that we have of Al's work is that he really walks the talk of peace building, seeking opportunities to learn with people, and yet it takes a lot of courage and determination and resourcefulness to really challenge war making as an industry. So going back to the ambassador, the photo of the ambassador, I feel like I'm on the Carol Burnett show or something. Okay, so back to the ambassador. Anyone who's worked with the ambassador knows he has emphasized the face-to-face relations as the essence of diplomacy. He emphasizes active listening and actually lectures seasoned senior diplomats on the fact that if you can't listen, you cannot be a diplomat. And he definitely reminds people, including senior diplomats, to keep their egos behind them, not in front of them, if they want to accomplish anything. So at his core, he's someone who's very warm, but very, very aware of human relations, the human dimension of peace building, and how important the internal aspect of that is. And that really is what helps people to have trust in him and turn to him for so many of these resolutions. So the personal level definitely resonates for both of the awardee and the person that we are honoring today is his legacy. Strategically, I would like to say something about Ambassador McDonald's framework, multi-track diplomacy. Basically, as you know, track one is government to government, and traditionally track two works with government, typically NGOs, generally to fulfill government objectives. I mean, NGOs may be working together, but they are typically aimed toward government objectives. So it's a hierarchical relationship. What the ambassador emphasized was really a much more egalitarian circle of 9 tracks, which included not just the government and the NGOs, but also business, religious institutions, donors and foundations, of course, advocacy groups. At the center of the, think of it as a compass, at the center is, it's called a track, but he also refers to it as the heart of the multi-track diplomacy system, which is really the communication that's required in order to build the trusting relationships. And you always see at the core a common purpose or a common value system. So Whether it's environmental negotiations, you'll see the precautionary principle, but there's something at the core. So no matter where you are working on peace building, there's a common value that you have. So what we see and appreciate from the work that Al has done is with his strong commitment to nonviolence, to challenging the war industry, he's really thinking through the many different tracks that were identified by the ambassador. And he's thinking deeply around ways to strengthen each one of those tracks. So with his own business background, you see that he is very systematic in, of course, beginning with the personal, but he also looks at issues that have to do with racial injustice, social justice issues, working with peace police, working on environmental protection, working with issues locally, mostly locally, on water and forests. But the prevention of violence for him is a lifelong commitment. It's a strategic commitment, and he is engaging public, private, and independent sectors to work on that. So I wanted to just highlight the significance of Rotarians and Rotarians as business leaders and educators, because they, as you saw from the map, they are strategically positioned all over the world. And Al Jubitz is working very carefully with his network of colleagues to strengthen common understandings and the skill building that's required to be really purposeful in relationships and in advancing world peace. So I'm very pleased to actually turn to our Carter School Dean to introduce Mr. Jubitz to you and let him speak for himself. Dean?
Thank you, Mary Jo. That was wonderful, really insightful, and it's just great to listen to Mr. Jubitz thinking about peace and peace building, his framework, and that's why really it's an honor for me to present the John W. McDonald Award to Mr. Al Jubitz. But first, let me share just a few facts about Al. Mary Jo mentioned some of those, but I think it's just amazing to see who he is and what he's done and how he contributed to the world of peace. So to start with, he's from Oregon. He's a third-generation Rotarian with a strategic system approach to peace building, social justice, and environmental stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
He holds a BS degree from Yale University and a master's from the University of Oregon School of Business. He co-founded and currently funds the Rotarian Action Group for Peace with members in 71 countries. The Action Group works with Rotary International to develop and support peace projects around the world to enhance and enrich lives of people from all walks of life, races, cultures, and religions. He has a successful career in business, and wonderful thing that from which he committed his profits to fund peace initiatives around the world. He's the president and founder of the Jubitz Family Foundation, where he directs funding to organizations that foster peace building, environmental stewardship, early childhood education, and building bridges out of poverty. Now, those are just some of the remarkable things about Al, but one of the most remarkable things I learned was about his dream to see the end of all wars. Now, some might argue that trying to replace the ethos of war with one of peace may seem impossible. However, if you think about all the things Al has done so far, the peace-building work undertaken by him in his tireless, passionate, and resilient manner actually has directly supported this vision. And hence, the reason why this award is so deserving. At the Carter School, we see common ground in this vision as we operate by a particular set of values, one of which is a commitment to peace. You see, we realize that a world without peace is a world without hope. At the Carter School, we continue to educate the next generation of peacemakers and peace builders, while honoring the Carter's legacy of selfless dedication to peace and to encourage others to likewise commit themselves to the realization of a more just and peaceful world. AL's engagement in peacebuilding activities around the world aligns with a shared vision and who we are at the Carter School. So tonight, as we celebrate International Day of Peace, we want to thank and honor you for your many years of outstanding service and leadership in peacebuilding with the presentation of the John W. McDonald Award. Now, to make things happen, now in Seattle, to help us with this presentation is Dr. Laura Schneider.
There we go.
There she is.
I'm Laura McDonald Schneider, Ambassador McDonald's youngest daughter, and I'm delighted to be here at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Al Jubitz in their North Peace lawn in fairly good air in Portland and doing our part to stay safe during COVID. Over the years, I recall my father sharing many conversations that he had had with you. With Al Jubitz, a man with whom he felt a strong connection and with whom he shared the conviction that individual and collective action can build a better and more peaceful world. My father felt a deep appreciation for Mr. Jubitz's understanding of the principles of multi-track diplomacy and for his action, initiative, and perseverance in applying those principles in support of worthy efforts around the world. He was very proud of you, Mr. Jubitz, and he loved the fact that you carried with you always the Rotary banner that had his mantra that the only way to solve a conflict at any level of society is to sit down face to face and talk about it. I'm honored to have been asked by the advisory board of the Carter School and by my dad's wife, Christelle Mcdonald, with our entire McDonald family, to present today on behalf of the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, this year's John W. McDonald Award to Mr. Alvin Jubitz for unwavering walk the talk commitment to multi-track diplomacy, for accelerating peace building, racial justice, ecological stewardship, and the nonviolent resolution of conflict around the world. Thank you. Right, there we go.
Ah, how beautiful.
For unwavering walk the talk commitment to multi-track diplomacy, accelerating peace building, racial justice, ecological stewardship, and the nonviolent resolution of global conflicts.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you all. Most appreciated. I'm humbled, of course. And I'm going to retire now to Studio 2 for my acceptance talk.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you all.
Excellent.
Yeah, my wife's office, in case you were wondering. What a joy to have a McDonald right here in my home on the front lawn. I mean, it's just spectacular to have Laura here. Crystal, thank you for arranging it. Thank you for conceiving this award and making it happen. John is alive and well, if not through you, through the award and through Laura and all of those of us that were influenced by John. So I'd like to just start with some acknowledgements. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, the nominating committee, Mary Jo and George, for working out the details of how this is all going to work within 60 minutes. I love it. It's just terrific. You mentioned the International Day of Peace. What an honor to have this ceremony on that day. And also it's the 75th anniversary of the United Nations celebrated today. Also in June, but the celebration is also today with the UN. That's very cool. George Mason University, your school, combined with Carter, two great brands and for peace and now aligned. I mean, that is awesome. Congratulations on doing that. It just further enhances that peace is real and it's a real profession and it's a real discipline. I love it. I've been to Point of View. On the George Mason list of assets is this beautiful retreat center. A Rotarian friend of mine, Harry Anastasio, took me to that venue a decade ago, and we hosted Greek and Turkish Cypriots to make peace. And that was a wonderful experience for me. It showed how peace building can occur. And John came down to that meeting as well. So that's very cool. Thank you, the Institute for Multi-Track Diplomacy, John and Christelle Mcdonald, Louise Diamond, for multi-track diplomacy. It helps organize my thinking and encourages me to think in terms of what language of peace must we learn and utilize for each of these sectors in our society. It's very important that we communicate. And so multi-track helps us understand that. And guess what? The internet kind of was organized around multi-track diplomacy also, which I thought very curious. So John's work, original work, and that of the school, right on target. We use this in the foundation of our work at the War Prevention Initiative. It's interesting to note that conflict resolution education or peace studies is relatively new, 40 years old now at the official university level. 1981, the first degree was conferred by George Mason University in conflict resolution. 20 years later, when Rotary started its Peace Fellowship program, there were about 40 universities around the planet conferring higher education degrees. Today, there's close to 500. That is rapid growth, and that tells you something. It tells you there's demand for resolving conflict knowledge through the students, and the universities are listening by creating courses and hiring faculty to teach these students. It's extremely encouraging that there's this high demand for higher education. In fact, it was the educators, mostly here, Portland State University, but they were educated by George Mason because you were the first. And so the ripple effect is very, very important and very real. But it was the academics that gave me the courage to go public on how I felt. If it was science-based, I felt I had some grounding, if you will. So I want to thank the academics throughout the world for their dedication and their careers. In fact, we are participating in the science by publishing for 5 years now, the Peace Science Digest, about 8 issues a year, and blogs all the time, and newsletters all the time. What we do is we take peace research, generally in universities, peer-reviewed, and we condense it into a format that idiots like myself can understand. So we take this, and we think this is understanding the research is very important. We'll give people eventually the courage to turn their backs on war. The other thing that really has encouraged me is the collection of all the academics in creating a global peace system. So I encourage those listening to go to Wikipedia, put in global peace system, and read about it. And what you'll see is John W. McDonald and the Institute for Multi-Track Diplomacy as featured as one of the key ingredients to the global peace system. It's very important to know not only the recent history, but also that people have been seeking peace for a very long time, building institutions for a very long time, and dreaming continually for a violence-free life. So all of this is very worthy work, and I tip my hat to academia and to their partnering with laymen like myself and others. I know on this call are many of my friends in Rotary. I look up to you like you don't even know. Just know that, because you give me the sustainability to keep this work going. If I had no friends in this movement, I'd probably give up. But I have a lot of friends in this movement. In fact, through Rotary clubs and through Rotary, they're coming out of the woodwork. And so that's just one thing that I'm doing now. So the Rotarian Action Group for Peace is very important. And we know that Rotarians have the DNA for Rotary, but they just don't necessarily have the knowledge. I mean, for peace, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge to teach peace. So that's one of the objectives that I'm doing. I'd like to end, because I want to leave time for some questions, with some homework. Are there any students on this call?
We're
Okay.
all students.
Pull out your pen and your paper. This is your homework assignment. These are memorizable, so don't panic. The first thing is, as was mentioned earlier, is what Mother Teresa advised us. She said, peace begins with a smile. We all have a smile, and it's a calling card. It's a message of kindness and peace, and God knows the world needs it now. So practice that, not just on your loved ones or your family or your colleagues, but on your foes. You know, break the ice with a smile. The second thing I'd like you to mention is what Laura said on the North Lawn. She said, John, Ambassador McDonald's quote, which I carried everywhere we would go for a trade show. And he said, let me get it right, the only way to solve a conflict at any level of society is to sit down face to face and talk about it. I'd like to repeat that. The only way, only is a big word, the only way to solve a conflict, any level of society, whether it's in your personal relationships, your business, your church, your state, county, nation, world, is to sit down face to face and talk about it, like be human. Ambassador John McDonald was a rock in my life, a stalwart, lovable, friendly, diplomatic, educator, learner, teacher, storyteller, handsome, buttoned down with a tie. I wondered for all day yesterday whether I should put a tie on in his honor. So I didn't, but he was always a buttoned down peace builder, and it really encouraged me to follow his path as best I could. So thank you very much for the award. I'm most grateful, and back to George, I think.
Yes.
It's me. Al, congratulations, most deserving. You've inspired so many people, and only over the weekend inspired me to join a Rotarian E-Club, a peace building club.
Oh, that's great.
So I thought before we open it up and to a kind of a jump ball from the Zoom invitees and also from people who want to ask questions on chat, if I could just ask you about the Rotarian influence and the infrastructure that you are able to work with. I know that there's a concept called the four-way test that you work out from and that kind of guided you into peace building, and maybe you could start by telling us about that.
I joined Rotary 43 years ago, overly busy raising a family and building a business. So the first 10 years at least, I didn't really know what Rotary, the depth and breadth of Rotary. Then in 1990, we hosted the International Convention here in Portland, and I was just awestruck by what I saw. People from all over the world loving service and having similar values. And the values, the foundation of values was a four-way test. Is it the truth? Now, my dad taught me to tell the truth. I mean, he convinced me that was the right way to go. So that wasn't too hard, although people will say that people's truths are different. There's where the conversation starts. The second test is fairness. Is it fair to all concerned? Now, fairness is a universal around the planet human desire. Everybody wants to be treated fairly. And if they feel they aren't, that's a conflict. So fairness is a big one. The third one is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? after all, relationships trump just about every problem out there. If you have good relationships, more than likely you'll have a good life. And the fourth is beneficiality. It can't only be fair, it's got to benefit everybody involved. And that is a real deep thinking test. So when I learned about Rotary's underpinning value system, I decided that I'd made some mistakes in my life. On the one hand, I wish I could play those tapes over again, but also I committed to living the future with the four-way test in the forefront of my mind. So I'm delighted to be a Rotarian. I wish everybody knew how great the organization was, and that every politician, no matter where you live, had to go through Rotary 101 before they gained power. But there's a real opportunity because Rotarians live around the planet, in towns and cities, and just about everywhere.
Okay, as I understand this technology, it's voice activated. So anyone that wants to start off asking a question, please.
This is David Wick. I'm a member of the Rotary, the E-Club of World Peace with Al and others on the call here. And I knew and worked with Ambassador McDonald through Pathways to Peace in the early 80s. And then the mid 90s, working with him. And just to reflect that I found a tremendous similarity with Ambassador McDonald and also Al Jubitz. With and almost there's a similarity in visual look, but with a broad vision with competence to make things happen, with a great heart, open heart, but also with a strength. It's a soft strength, but it's going to happen. You move in a direction and it will happen. And a boldness. There's got to be a strength and a boldness to bring it forward. And Al is doing that as Ambassador McDonald did. So I'm delighted to be part of this. So thank you.
Thank you, David. For those of you in the U.S. and the policing issue in the U.S., David's a leader in Albany, Oregon, with the nonprofit group Police to Peace. Instead of police officer, think peace officer. It changes the thinking of the officer themselves. So thank you, David, for the comment. But any questions? I want to tip the hat to my colleague, Dennis Wong, who, had he not made a phone call in February of, I think it was 2012, we never would have had a Rotarian Action Group. Dennis, a forward thinker from Connecticut. Thanks, Dennis, for being on the call. All right, any other questions? Yes.
Sure. Could you talk about the Rotary Action Group, please?
Yeah, Rotary, has been around for 106 to 15 years, and is pretty geographic based originally. So clubs are of local people. They are united by the organization, and they have conventions where everybody gets to. Basically, it's a club-oriented local thing historically. But what happened several years ago, about 2007, was that people were telling Rotary that we have interests beyond our local area and we have specialized interests. So the concept of Rotarian action groups was formed where they could be worldwide organizations on a particular topic. Many of the action groups deal with health issues or disease. Ours, that Dennis and I founded, originally was on peace. And that was John McDonald coming through in an action. And so the seeds he planted in me years before finally are bearing fruit. And so we have that organization based in Portland, but with a world vision. And Rotarians from all over the world are members, like it was said, 71 countries. Our board of directors is diverse. We try to help clubs understand the concepts of peace and practice peace. That's what our mission is, and educating, of course.
Al, I have a question for you here, and congratulations. And they couldn't have picked nobody better to honor for this award. You're a dear friend, and look up to you so much with you've invested your time, talents, and treasures into your beliefs and following through and supported our peace conferences and I really appreciate the friendship. But where do you see Al Jubitz in peace that we need to work on together here as a peace community for the next, let's say, 5 years? Where should we go?
My end of life objective is to prevent all war by 2030. Ambassador McDonald liked that idea, as you would imagine. And we have to ramp up the pace. We have got to put our foot on, the pedal to the metal, which is an old trucker term. I keep out of the trucking industry. So we have to put the pedal to the metal on that and learn language that doesn't put people in power off, but shows them the sensibility, the common sense that investing in war or the aftermath of war is a waste of money. God knows we have enough, we spent enough on disease, but violence is a disease. And we all need to influence our local representatives and senators and whoever will give us an ear to stop the nonsense of planning for self-destruction. Don't even get me started on nuclear weapons, please. It's insane. And it could be lights out tonight. So we need to ramp up the science around war and ramp up the conversation around war.
So let me jump in and say that the chat comments are overwhelmingly congratulatory rather than inquisitorial. And I'll share those with you, Al. But maybe we'll have one more question from our invitees here on the Zoom call.
I don't have a question, but I would like to say something, if I may. Chris Mitchell, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, all right. It's a personal word of thanks to Al because I don't know whether he remembers, but I was part of that whole set of meetings down at Point of View when we were trying to do something about the Cyprus situation. And I'd like to try to link that word of thanks also to something that John McDonald used to say, which was that peacemaking is a very long business. And one of the things you have to have is persistence and a recognition that, even if Al manages to stop war completely by 2030, that's still a 10-year project. And I think what we have to do is keep in mind the fact that we are going to have to work at this steadily and sustainably and often for a very long time. And John always used to say that when he was working with IMTD, that they really always regarded themselves as being in it for the long haul. And I think that's another lesson that we also ought to take to mind from John and from John's work.
I totally agree. And your first name is?
Chris Mitchell.
Chris Mitchell. Yes, thank you for your comment. And for those of you that want to live a long life, join the peace movement. My mentors along the way have all lived into their 90s. Look at Jimmy Carter. Look at Ambassador McDonald. Look at my friend John Whiteneck. They're all have great longevity. And it's because there's always something to do. It's the long haul and it's consistent. And we will it's a marathon, shouldn't be, but it is, but we're making tremendous progress. Understand the global peace system and you will be in awe and appreciation. Everybody that worked for all the institutions that have been built up to prevent war. And like multinational institutions, economic institutions here and there, it's just a wonderful story of the global peace system. And we need to get that out so people have confidence. And I gave a talk at a Rotary Club once on that, and a woman came up to me afterwards in tears. She said she had no idea there was this fabric of peace built by well-meaning and educated.
Clean up.
So she was so grateful, and I think it moved her off the violence track onto the peace track.
George, I think Anne Frisch had a question. I saw her hand.
Oh, my good friend.
It says, Al, your multi-track diplomacy extends from funding significant publications to dispute resolution with a smile and commitment to working things out at the personal level. So would you tell us about your earliest work on nuclear weapons abolition?
Yeah, I learned, I was in the Beyond War movement in 80 to 84 out of the Bay Area, California. And I learned about the excesses of the arms race and the absolute insanity of nuclear weapons. It alarmed me. So we did this BB experience in living room conversations, and we'd pour BBs into a metal pail endlessly. One BB represented all the firepower of World War II. And by the time we poured 6,000 BBs into a pail, people were saying, please stop. I can't stand it. And that's how you can trust government to keep building one more weapon than the other guy. Well, we eliminated through agreement 70% of those weapons, but we still have 30%, which is 1,800 World War IIs, including Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's absolutely insane, and it's hair trigger, prone to accident, scary stuff. And we've got to call for an end to the nuclear stockpiles. But it started then. I went to Rotary. I was honored at Rotary, and I took my bucket, and I had to ship it FedEx because of airport security, and I took the BBs, and I did that for my little talk to all these amazed Rotarians on the 17th floor in Evanston. And I don't think there's been anything like it since or before. Peggy's on this call. She'll tell me. Anyway, it's been a passion of mine for a long time, and we just need to keep looking. The good news is the ICANN and the International Treaty to Ban Nuclear Weapons is nearly ratified by 60 countries now. It's right around the corner, maybe 4 or 5 to go. And that's a game changer, because now it becomes illegal to the whole world, and that'll change the conversation once again. We need your voices on nuclear weapons. They do not make us safer, not at all.
Okay. Well, with apologies to anyone who didn't get their question answered here,
George,
we're rounding the hour, and we have a couple more items on the agenda. So I'm going to turn it back to Dean Ozerdem, and congratulations, Al. Wonderful news.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost the end of our ceremony. And to do this part, I will need your collaboration. Now, first of all, you would need a glass of some sort of beverage, right? Make sure that you have a glass of something with you. If not, that, yes, exactly, you will need to pretend then. And the second thing is that, because I like to propose a toast to Mr. Jubitz, and I want to do this in a kind of a different way. Well, I want to use the word from Turkish, which is şerefe. Well, şerefe, probably Mr. Jubitz knows this word, means to your honor. And then I think it's really appropriate word, the way of toasting for this special night. So the word is şerefe, which means to your honor. And I'd like to raise my glass to this very special man, Mr. Jubitz, and to his honor and his tireless peace-building work. Thank you very much. Şerefe.
Şerefe. Şerefe. Thank you. You know, I would like to just Sherifet and Anne Frisch, would you like to say Sherifet and one last thing? Did somebody mute?
Unmute yourself, Anne.
Just a very short vignette of how Al works. Some of us, Marsha Hunt, Bob Smith, and I came out of the Atlanta convention with the goal of starting something on nuclear weapons in Rotary. And Al met us over the phone. We were met in Los Angeles. Rudy and Karen were there, a few other people. And we moved this movement into Rotary with Al's support and great grace and wisdom. And we have made great progress working India, Pakistan, and Russia, US, just in very small ways, but this is just a tangible way that Al works.
Thank you very much, Anne. So I'd like to repeat, Sharafet to everyone. And as we close out this ceremony, thank you again, Al, and thank you, Laura, and everyone else who was involved in putting this together. Rotary, definitely, we're so pleased to have you involved with the Carter School. We have a videotape that we'd like to show, which is, it's a videotape that is a trailer for a documentary from the Carter Center, but we thought it would be an upbeat way to complete this hour together. It's a little rock and roll. So I think George has that set up. And then following that, we have a, you can look at the variety of programs that are available at the Carter School for Peace Week. So thank you again, everyone, and good night.
Good night. All right. Sounds familiar. One of the things that have held America together has been the music that we share and love.
Jimmy Carter used music in a way that helped him in his politics, but it had never been done quite that way.
I'd like to dedicate this song to Jimmy Carter.
I want to introduce to you the great Allman Brothers.
It's cool, he enjoyed our music, and he became a friend. When I first met Jimmy, first thing he did was quote my songs back to me. Bob Dylan has been one of my best friends, along with Willie Nelson. When Willie Nelson wrote his autobiography, he confessed that he smoked pot in the White House, and he said that his companion was one of the servants in the White House. Actually, was one of my sons.
My thoughts and my prayers for our hostages in Iran are as though they were my own sons and daughters. The hostage thing, I think, amplified a lot of the fears that people had.
With all the odds against him, he still did what he thought was right. That's not a bad pattern for all of us to follow. Human rights, the right to live like a human, that's something that President Carter tried to make real with his foreign policy.
We now have a president that started to see the world the way we saw it.
His love for music makes sense to me because music is the voice of the heart. One of the reasons that musicians were drawn to President Carter, he was a man of the earth. For God's sake, he was a peanut farmer. That was the music of change and dissidence. There was a risk politically for that, and it didn't matter to him.
I think music is the best proof that people have one thing in common, no matter where they live, no matter what language they speak.
Thank you very much. I think Alma brought that to our attention, and it's the documentary, I'm sure, will have a better sound quality, but at least that's a taste of the music that's coming. Okay, good night, everyone.